The wind howled across the dead land, carrying dust and the smell of burnt metal. In the center of the ruined city stood a giant dome of black glass. Inside it lived the creature everyone feared. The army called her the Monster. People in nearby towns whispered about her in fear. Some said she could kill with her eyes. Others believed she had destroyed entire planets. But no one really knew the truth. Every night, bright lights shone on the dome, as if the army was afraid she would escape if there was darkness. Soldiers guarded the place with heavy guns. Scientists in white coats watched her through thick glass. Some wanted to kill her, some wanted to study her, and some wanted to keep her locked away forever. Inside the dome, chained to the floor, sat a thin figure. Her skin glowed faintly in the dark, like moonlight on water. Her long hair fell over her face, hiding her eyes. She was not moving much, only breathing slowly, as if she had no strength left. The world saw her as a monster, but to one man she looked different. He was a soldier, new to this place. His job was to watch the dome at night. While others joked about the beast inside, he stayed silent. He noticed things they did not: how she shivered in the cold, how she tried to drink rainwater dripping through the broken roof, how she looked at the sky sometimes as if searching for something she had lost. The first time he saw her eyes, he felt his heart stop. They were not the eyes of a killer. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much pain. Still, everyone told him the same thing: she is dangerous. Never go near her. If she ever gets free, she will destroy us all. But the soldier was not so sure. One night, a storm came. Lightning lit up the sky. Thunder shook the ground. The soldier stood at his post near the dome while rain poured down like buckets of water from the heavens. He saw her inside chains, cutting into her arms as she tried to move away from the leaking roof. She was trembling violently, cold water soaking her thin clothes, and then she spoke. It was the first time he had heard her voice. Soft, weak, almost broken. Do you fear me too?" she whispered, looking at him through the glass. The soldier froze. The world called her a monster. Soldiers had warned him she was heartless, cruel, born to kill, but her voice carried no hate, only sadness. He did not answer. The other soldiers were busy laughing in their tents, staying warm and dry. No one cared what happened inside the dome. But he could not stop thinking about her words. That night, after the storm passed, the soldier walked closer to the dome. He brought a small light and pointed it inside. She was curled up on the wet floor, chains rattling as she tried to keep herself warm. Her face was pale, lips trembling from the cold. She looked less like a monster now, and more like a girl who had been left alone for far too long. "Why do they hate you?" the soldier asked softly, even though he knew she might not answer. She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "They fear what they don't understand," she whispered. Her voice cracked as if speaking hurt her. "But I didn't destroy their city. I didn't kill their people. I was running from the same ones who burned my world." The soldier stared at her. This was not what the council had told them. They had said she was dangerous, that she had brought death to her own planet, and now she threatened theirs. But looking at her now, shivering in chains, he felt doubt creeping into his mind. "Why are you here then?" he asked. She closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek. Because they needed someone to blame. The soldier felt something twist in his chest. The storm had passed, but inside the dome, it seemed the real storm was just beginning. The next morning, other soldiers returned to guard duty. They joked about the monster, throwing pieces of stale bread toward the dome, laughing when she ignored it. But the soldier who had spoken to her stayed quiet. He had seen something in her eyes last night. Something human. Something the council did not want to see. And deep inside, a dangerous thought began to grow. What if the monster the world feared was never a monster at all? The rain stopped by morning, leaving the sky heavy and gray. Soldiers. stood in their posts with sleepy eyes, holding guns that were already rusting at the edges. The black dome in the center of the camp looked the same as always, cold, silent, unbroken. But one man knew something had changed inside. The young soldier who had heard her voice the night before could not stop thinking about it. Her words echoed in his head like a song he couldn't forget. "Do you fear me too?" He had not answered then. He didn't even know what to say. He was trained to follow orders, to believe what the council said. She is dangerous. She must stay locked away. But last night he had seen her shaking in the cold, her chains cutting into her wrists. He had heard the sadness in her voice. Monsters don't cry. Monsters don't whisper like that. All day, he kept watching the dome. The other soldiers laughed, smoked, and played cards, ignoring the prisoner inside. They called her names, betting how long she would last before the council decided to finish it. But the young soldier felt uneasy. Something was wrong. That evening, as the sun sank behind dark clouds, he made a choice that could get him arrested or worse. He waited until the others were distracted, then slipped near the side gate carrying a small piece of bread, some water, and a thin blanket he had taken from the supply tent. He knew it was against every rule in the book. The council wanted the prisoner weak, afraid, silent, but he couldn't stand seeing her like that. When he reached the edge of the dome, she was sitting exactly where he had seen her last night, arms wrapped around herself, eyes half closed as if she hadn't slept in days. She turned her head slightly when she saw him. "You came back," she whispered softly, voice rough from thirst. He crouched near the glass, looking around to make sure no one was watching. "I brought you something," he said quietly. He pushed the bread and water through a small opening at the bottom of the gate. It was meant for guards to slide in food, but most of the time, they threw scraps like feeding a wild animal. This time, someone offered it with respect. Her hands trembled as she picked up the bread. She didn't eat right away. Instead, she looked at him with eyes that seemed too bright for her thin, tired face. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why are you helping me?" The soldier didn't know how to answer. He wasn't sure himself. Maybe because she didn't look like a monster. Maybe because the way she spoke felt human. "Because you look like you need it," he said finally. For a long moment, she was silent. Then she whispered, "They all think I'm a killer." "That's what they say," he admitted. "But I'm not." Her voice cracked. "The ones who burned my world. They came from the stars. They killed everyone. My family, my people, everyone. I ran because I had nowhere left to go. And when I fell to this planet, they locked me up." The soldier felt a chill crawl down his back. "You mean the real enemy is still out there?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "The council knows," she said bitterly. "But they needed someone to blame, so they chose me." Lightning flashed far away in the sky, though no thunder followed. It felt like even the weather was listening. The soldier leaned closer to the glass. "If what you're saying is true, why not tell them?" Her laugh was soft, broken. "Do you think they would listen? To a girl they call a monster? They see my powers, my eyes, my strength, and they fear me. That's all they need to hate me." She finally drank the water, slow and careful, as if she was not used to kindness anymore. The soldier looked back toward the camp. If anyone found him here, he could be thrown in prison himself. But when he looked at her again, he knew he couldn't walk away. She wasn't a monster. She was something else. Someone who had lost everything. "Tomorrow," she whispered suddenly, glancing toward the guards in the distance, "they will decide my fate. They want to move me to the capital. More chains. More walls. They will never let me go." The soldier felt his chest tighten. For the first time since he arrived at this camp, he realized he didn't agree with his orders. Maybe the world feared her. Maybe the council hated her. But he was starting to see something no one else wanted to see. She wasn't the danger. The real danger was coming from the stars, and this girl might be the only one who knew how to stop it. The night fell heavy and dark over the camp. Clouds hid the moon, and the air carried the smell of rain that hadn't yet come. Soldiers gathered near fires, warming their hands, laughing, passing bottles of cheap drink between them. But one man wasn't laughing. The young soldier sat near the edge of the camp, staring at the black dome in the center. He couldn't get her voice out of his head, the way she had spoken last night, the way her words held pain but also courage. Tomorrow they would move her to the capital. More chains. More walls. Maybe even execution. The council had already decided she was too dangerous to live. But was she really dangerous? He had seen danger before: raiders, mercenaries, even alien creatures that tore through villages. Those things killed without mercy. She hadn't killed anyone. She had only looked scared. Alone. And the more he thought about it, the more he felt a fire burning in his chest. Something wasn't right. The council was hiding something. That night, the storm returned. It came like a beast unleashed, thunder roaring, rain lashing down in sheets, lightning tearing across the sky. The soldiers cursed it and ran for cover, leaving only a few guards shivering near the fires that quickly died in the rain. The soldiers saw the power lines spark near the dome. Then, with a loud crack, the lights around the containment field went out. The black glass glimmered with water as the storm raged. He saw her inside, chains glinting whenever lightning lit up the sky. She was struggling, pulling at the cuffs on her wrists, the storm making the floors slippery beneath her feet. And for the first time, he saw blood. The chains had cut into her arms. Deep, without thinking, he ran through the rain toward the dome. Guards shouted at him when they saw where he was going. "Stay back, idiot. If the power fails completely, she'll kill you first." One of them yelled, but he didn't listen. He reached the gate, pulled the manual lever that groaned from rust, and stepped inside. The air smelled of wet metal and fear. She froze when she saw him enter. Her glowing eyes blinked through the rain, running down her face. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, voice shaking. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, moving closer. "Let me help." The chains rattled as she tried to pull away. She was trembling, whether from fear or cold, he couldn't tell. He saw her arms, raw and bleeding from metal cuffs tightened too much. The council didn't care if she lived or died. Slowly, carefully, he reached out his hand. The soldiers outside shouted again. "Get out of there. She's a killer. She'd tear you apart." But he didn't believe them anymore. She stared at his hand like it was something she had never seen before. Something impossible. No one had touched her since the day she was captured. Guards threw food from a distance. Scientists poked at her through metal rods. The council only saw her as a threat, never as a person. The storm raged louder. Thunder shook the ground. The power finally went out completely, plunging the whole camp into darkness, and in that darkness, she placed her hand in his. It was small, cold, trembling, but it was a hand, not a claw. Not a weapon, a hand. The soldiers outside stopped shouting. Some even froze, watching through the glass with wide eyes. The girl everyone called a monster wasn't attacking. She was holding onto him like someone drowning in deep water. "Why?" she whispered, voice breaking. "Why aren't you afraid?" The soldier tightened his grip just enough to steady her. "Because you're not what they say you are," he said softly. "I can see it." She blinked rapidly, rain mixing with tears on her face. For the first time, she wasn't shaking from cold or fear. For the first time, someone had touched her without hate. Then came the sound of engines far off in the distance. Bright lights cut through the rain. Heavy vehicles, armed men. The council's transport units had arrived earlier than expected. The soldiers outside raised weapons, shouting orders over the storm. "They're here for her," one guard yelled. "They're taking her tonight." Inside the dome, the girl flinched at the sound. She knew what this meant. More chains. More prisons. Maybe even death. The soldier looked at her terrified face and made a decision that would change everything. He wasn't going to let them take her. Not now. Not after what he had just seen. She wasn't a monster. She was a girl the whole world had turned into one. And for the first time, someone was willing to stand between her and everyone else. The engines grew louder outside the camp. Rain poured like the sky itself wanted to drown the earth. Soldiers shouted orders over the storm, their boots splashing through mud as they rushed toward the black dome. Inside, the soldier still held her hand. She looked at him with wide, glowing eyes, breathing fast. She didn't know why this stranger had touched her when no one else ever dared. She didn't know why he hadn't run when the world called her a monster. And now they had come to take her away. Listen, he said quickly, his voice low but urgent. If they move you to the capital, you'll never get out. You'll vanish. I've seen what they do to people they call threats. Her chains rattled as she stepped closer. Then what do we do? The question surprised him. We. She had said we, as if they were already on the same side. He didn't know the answer. But he knew one thing: he couldn't let them take her. The storm hit harder. Lightning flashed again, blinding for a moment. And in that split second, the power lines near the gate sparked violently. Then everything went dark. The soldiers outside cursed. The spotlights, the fences, the electric locks, all dead. Back up. Power, someone shouted. But the wind swallowed the order. The soldier looked at her chains. With no power, the automatic locks keeping her tethered had clicked open. She looked at him, waiting. He hesitated only for a moment. Come on, he said. We have to go before they surround the dome. They ran, through the mud, through the rain, past the dying fires. Soldiers shouted when they saw the dark figure escape the dome. But the storm hid everything in shadows. She moved faster than he expected. Even weak, even bleeding, she was quicker than most humans. He realized the council feared her speed, her strength. But they never understood something else. She wasn't fighting to hurt anyone. She was running to survive. Bullets cracked through the night as soldiers opened fire. Sparks flew off metal walls where shots missed. The soldier grabbed her hand again and pulled her behind a broken supply truck. This way. He shouted over the storm. They slipped into the tree line beyond the camp as alarms wailed behind them. For hours, they ran through the dark forest, the sound of engines and shouts fading slowly behind. Finally, when they were deep enough that only rain and wind surrounded them, they stopped under an old, fallen tree. Both were soaked. Both were breathing hard. She looked at him with something like confusion and maybe even trust. You could have left me, she said softly. He nodded. I could have. Why didn't you? He didn't answer right away. Maybe because he didn't know. Maybe because words didn't feel enough for what he was feeling. Instead, he tore the small blanket he had carried earlier and wrapped it around her shoulders. She blinked at him in surprise. No one had ever done that for her before. As the night dragged on, she began to speak. Not much at first, small pieces. Broken words like someone afraid to remember. She told him about her homeworld. About fire raining from the skies, cities crumbling. Her people screaming as alien warships blotted out the stars. She told him about the council here on this planet. How they captured her when her escape pod crashed. How they saw her powers and decided she was too dangerous to live. They didn't want to hear the truth. She whispered, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark, that the ones who destroyed my world will come here next. The soldier listened quietly, the weight of her words sinking in like cold water through his clothes. The council wasn't just cruel, they were blind, maybe even foolish enough to doom the entire planet because they feared one girl instead of the real enemy. At dawn, the storm finally ended. The forest dripped with water as weak sunlight tried to break through the clouds. The soldier knew the search teams would be looking for them soon. But something inside him had changed. Last night, she was just a prisoner everyone called a monster. Now, She was someone with a name, someone with a story, someone the whole world had turned into a villain because it was easier than facing the truth. And maybe she was the only one who could save them when the real threat came. As they rested near a stream, she turned to him suddenly. "They won't stop hunting us," she said softly. "If you stay with me, you'll be a traitor too." He looked back toward the smoke rising from the distant camp. He knew she was right. But he also knew he wasn't going back. "Then I guess I'm a traitor now," he said simply, for the first time. She smiled. A small, tired smile, but real. The kind of smile that said maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. Morning sunlight crept slowly across the wet forest, glinting off leaves heavy with rain. Birds had just begun to sing again after the long night of thunder. But beneath the trees, the air stayed tense and cold. The girl and the soldier rested near a stream, hidden under low branches. Their clothes were still damp, their bodies tired, but neither of them could sleep, because both of them knew this peace wouldn't last. "They'll come after us," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had been hunted before. He nodded. "I know. They won't stop." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Both of them understood what was coming. Back at the camp, the council's soldiers were already moving. The storm had destroyed the fences, fried the cameras, and cut power to half the base. But that didn't matter. All that mattered was the escaped prisoner. The council didn't want her alive. They wanted her silenced. Orders went out across the planet before noon. Bounty hunters, tracking drones, search teams. No one cared if she was brought back dead or alive, so long as she never spoke the truth about what she knew. And anyone helping her, they would hang for treason. The soldier and the girl moved carefully through the forest. He led the way, keeping low, scanning for patrols. She followed silently, her glowing eyes watching every shadow. "You should leave me," she said at one point. "If they catch us together, they'll kill you too." He shook his head. "Not leaving." She studied him for a moment, as if trying to understand why. Finally she whispered, "You're strange." He almost smiled. "I've heard that before." By afternoon, they reached an old road half buried under moss and dirt. Rusted signs leaned at odd angles, written in a language the soldier didn't recognize. "This place was abandoned years ago," he said. "We can rest here for a bit." They found a collapsed gas station with a roof still standing. Broken. Windows let in sunlight that painted long shadows across the floor. For the first time since escaping, the girl sat down like she wasn't about to run again. She drank from the stream water he had collected in an old bottle, then pulled the thin blanket tighter around her shoulders. She looked almost normal. Almost human. The soldier sat across from her, watching. "You're not afraid of me," she said finally. He shook his head. "Why?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Because monsters don't cry when no one is watching." She froze, her glowing eyes flicking toward him sharply. But she didn't deny it. That night, the first hunters came. The soldier spotted them first. 3 drones gliding silently through the trees, their red lights blinking as they scanned the forest floor. "They found us," he whispered. The girl tensed. They moved quickly, deeper into the woods, staying off the main roads. But the drones followed, their scanners sweeping side to side, searching for heat, for movement, for anything alive. One of the drones spotted them just before dusk. It locked on with a high-pitched beep. Then came the sound of engines. Bikes. Fast ones. The first bounty hunters arrived on hovering cycles, faces covered with metal masks, rifles strapped across their backs. The girl and the soldier ran through the trees as the hunters closed in. Bolts of plasma, fire tore through branches around them. Trees exploded in sparks and smoke. The soldier returned fire with the small rifle he had stolen from the camp, but he knew it wouldn't hold them off for long. The girl stopped suddenly near a fallen tree. Her eyes glowed brighter, her hands curling into fists. "What are you doing?" he shouted. She didn't answer. One of the hunters fired again, this time at her. The bolt stopped. Mid-air, the soldier blinked in shock. The plasma blast hung in front of her like a frozen ball of light, then reversed direction and shot back toward the hunter. His bike exploded in a ball of fire. The others swerved back in panic. She turned toward the soldier, her face pale but determined. "I told you. They should be afraid of what's coming. Not me." By the time night fell, the hunters had pulled back to regroup. The soldier and the girl found shelter in a cave near a cliffside, far from the burning wreck of the hover bike. He stared at her in the firelight, finally understanding why the council feared her so much. Not because she was evil, but because she was powerful, and maybe because she might be the only one who could stop the real enemy when it arrived. The cave was cold, its stone walls dripping with water. A small fire burned between the soldier and the girl, casting flickering shadows on their faces. Outside, the forest was silent. The bounty hunters had stopped chasing for now, but both of them knew it wouldn't last. The soldier watched the girl as she sat across from him. Her eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, her face calm but unreadable. Finally he said what had been on his mind since the attack. You stopped that plasma shot." Like it was nothing. She looked at him for a long moment before answering. "I told you," she said softly. "They fear me because they see power. They don't ask why I have it." "Then tell me," he said. "Why do you?" She stared into the fire. "Because I wasn't just anyone on my world, my family. We were the last rulers of the Lathari people. When the enemy came, they burned everything. My parents, my brothers, all gone. I was the only one who escaped. I carry the bloodline key. It's the only thing that can unlock the weapon buried on this planet. The one thing that can stop them. When they come here." The soldier felt a chill crawl up his spine. "They're coming here? To this planet?" She nodded slowly. "Soon. Your council is too busy hunting me to see the real danger above their heads." Far away, in the capital city, the council was meeting in a grand chamber of steel and glass. Screens showed images of the escaped prisoner, grainy photos of the soldier helping her. "She has killed bounty hunters," one counselor snapped. "She is a threat to the planet." "Or maybe," another said carefully, "she's only fighting because we keep attacking her." The others glared. But before the argument could continue, alarms blared across the entire city. Unidentified ships entering orbit. A voice shouted over the speakers, "Massive fleet. Weapons locked." The council froze. On the main screen, black shapes slid out of the darkness of space. Dozens, then hundreds of alien warships, the same ones that had destroyed her world. The war she warned them about had come to their doorstep. Back in the forest, the girl felt it before the alarms reached them. A deep hum in the air, like the sky itself was trembling. She stood quickly, eyes flashing. "They're here." The soldier grabbed his rifle and looked toward the horizon. "The enemy?" She nodded. A moment later, the sky lit up with fire. Alien ships cut through the clouds, massive engines glowing red. Explosions shook the distant city as plasma strikes rained down, turning towers into burning rubble. The council had no time to prepare. "We have to reach the weapon," she said sharply. "The weapon?" he asked. She pointed toward the mountains. "Beyond the forest. My people hid it there centuries ago. It only responds to my bloodline, if I can wake it. Maybe this planet has a chance." The soldier didn't hesitate. "Then let's go." They traveled through chaos. The roads were choked with fleeing civilians. Fires burned in the distance. Alien ships swept overhead, hunting military bases, blasting defenses before the soldiers on the ground even knew where to aim. At one point, they passed a crashed council aircraft. Inside, a dying official grabbed the soldier's arm. "Help, U.S.," the man gasped. She's the only one who can stop them." The soldier almost laughed bitterly. Hours ago, the council had called her a monster. Now as cities burned, they begged for her help. By nightfall, they reached the base of the mountains. The girl led him to a hidden valley marked by ancient stone pillars carved with glowing runes. At the center stood a massive metal door, half buried in the earth. "This is it," she whispered. The soldier looked up as alien ships swept closer overhead. "We don't have much time." She stepped forward and pressed her glowing hand against the door. With a deep rumble, the ground shook. The metal split apart, revealing a chamber filled with light. Inside rested something huge, sleeping beneath layers of dust and vines. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a war machine, the size of a fortress, forged from black metal and silver fire. Its shape like some ancient beast from forgotten myths. The soldier stared up at it, speechless. "What is it?" he asked finally. Her voice was steady. "The last guardian of my people," she said. "And tonight, it wakes." As alien ships closed in on the valley, the girl climbed the steps toward the war machine's control platform. The runes glowed brighter as she approached, responding to her bloodline like it had been waiting centuries for this moment. The soldier raised his rifle toward the sky. "They're coming." The girl placed her hand on the final seal, and the mountain itself roared to life. The mountain shook as the ancient war machine rose from its long sleep. Metal plates slid apart with the sound of thunder. Blue energy crackled along its massive frame as though lightning itself flowed through its veins. The soldier stared up in awe. The machine towered above them like a living fortress, its eyes burning with light, its arms ending in cannons bigger than any human weapon. Above the valley, alien ships circled like vultures ready to strike. The girl stood on the platform. At the center of the machine, the wind whipped her hair across her face as she placed her glowing hand on the final control rune. The entire mountain answered her touch. With a roar that shook the earth, the war machine came fully alive. The first alien ships dove toward the valley, weapons flashing. Plasma fire rained down, turning trees into blazing pillars. The soldier grabbed his rifle and crouched behind a boulder, ready to fight even though he knew his weapon was useless against ships this size. But then the machine moved. A shield of blue light unfolded above the valley, catching the enemy's blasts like stones thrown against steel. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens pulled back in surprise. The girl's voice echoed through the machine, calm and strong. "They burned my world," she said softly, but her words carried like thunder. "They will not burn this one." The war machine raised its arm. Energy built in its cannons until the air itself trembled. Then a single beam of white light ripped through the sky, striking the nearest alien cruiser. The ship exploded in fire and metal, raining pieces into the forest below. The others turned to attack, but the machine moved faster, its weapons carving through the fleet like a blade through water. The soldier watched in stunned silence. Hours ago, the council had called her a monster. Now, she was their only hope. In the capital city, counselors huddled in bunkers, watching live feeds of the battle. She's saving us," one whispered in disbelief. Another slammed his fist on the table. "We hunted her like an animal, and now she fights for the planet we tried to take from her." No one spoke after that. They knew the truth. They had feared the wrong enemy all along. More alien ships poured from the clouds, their weapons lighting up the night. The war machine met them head-on, its cannons roaring, its shields blazing like a second sun. But even with its power, the enemy was relentless. The soldier climbed up the platform toward the girl. "They just keep coming," he shouted over the roar. She didn't look at him. Her eyes glowed brighter as she fed more energy into the machine's core. "Then we finish it now." High above, the largest alien ship descended, a massive flagship bristling with weapons, its engines glowing red like the heart of a demon. The girl's hands shook as she activated the machine's final weapon. "This will drain everything," she warned softly. "When it's over, there may be nothing left of me." The soldier grabbed her arm. No, there has to be another way. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Through the smoke and fire. You're the only one who saw me, she whispered. Not as a monster, not as a weapon. Just me. He held her gaze. That's because you were never the monster they said you were. For a moment, the war faded. It was just the two of them, standing on the edge of the world. Then the flagship fired its main cannon, and the moment was gone. The girl slammed her hand onto the control room. The war machine roared like the earth. Itself had grown angry, a sphere of white-hot energy gathered in its chest, brighter than the sun, building until the sky turned white. Then it fired. The beam tore through the flagship, ripping it apart in a single blinding strike. The explosion lit the night for miles, a second dawn born from fire and fury. The remaining alien ships scattered, retreating into the clouds. The invasion was over. Silence fell across the valley. The war machine, smoking and broken, sank slowly back into the mountain. Its lights dimmed until only the wind filled the air again. The soldier ran to the girl as she collapsed on the platform. She was pale, exhausted, but alive. You did it, he said softly. Helping her stand, she looked at the horizon where alien ships burned in the distance. No, she said quietly, we did. Days later, the council offered her medals, titles, power. She refused them all. The people no longer called her a monster. Now they called her the savior of the planet. But she stayed close only to the soldier who had believed in her before anyone else. One evening, as the sun set over the rebuilt city, she stood beside him on a quiet hill. They feared me, she said softly. But you didn't. He smiled faintly. Because I saw you before the fear did. For the first time since he had met her, she laughed a small, real laugh that carried across the wind dot, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid anymore.